Hey Andrew, what's in that jar?
The label says applesauce.
Well, what's in that can?
The label says chicken noodle soup.
What about that next item?
Hmm, this one doesn't come with a label. When I was a young man, a highly respected doctor in New York diagnosed me with dyslexia. My proposal is that a label affects the student much more profoundly than the educator, parent, or administrator. I would consider myself as a fairly intelligent young man. However, I did have trouble with writing. The quality of my writing was good, but the problem was spelling. My ability to express my thoughts clearly and in an interesting way was more than likely above average. As I would write, however, my thoughts would sometimes get disrupted when I had to pause and get the dictionary out to find out how to spell a word. Even with the dictionary in hand, frustration would mount because I had trouble knowing where to look for the word I wanted to use. For example, if I wanted to use the word heresy, I knew to look under H, but was not sure if it would be under HA or HE. So then I would have to read completely through both HA and HE until I recognized the word. Then I would read the definition just to make sure I had the correct word indeed. Sometimes I could not find the word I wanted to use at all, and would have to think of another word with a similar meaning. Sometimes I had to modify what I was saying altogether. Keep in mind that this was in the day before spell check, or even before the personal computer. This was quite frustrating because my vocabulary was not limited, and my choice of words was at times quite ingenious. But to apply these skills was another story. What I found out was that the quality of work I produced was as good as, or better than, the brightest students in my class. But I invested an enormous amount of time in such projects compared to my classmates. Nowadays, we have tools such as Google and spell check that I use in order to help with some of the challenges I face. The spell check feature is extremely useful and has saved me countless hours as an adult student. It is not without limitations, though. As in my illustration with the dictionary, sometimes I will type a word that is so poorly misspelled, the spell check does not offer any suggestions. When this happens, I have to retype the word with a different spelling in order to get suggestions containing the word spelled correctly. Often, this strategy does not work, so instead of getting the dictionary out, I've developed a different coping skill. As I did so many years ago, I will think of a word with a similar meaning, and hopefully this word is easier to spell. Well, at least get close enough that spell check will offer suggestions containing the right word. I will take this word and go to dictionary.com, a website that has an excellent thesaurus. In this way, I can find the correct spelling of the word I had originally intended to use. This may sound strange, but going through this tedious process gives me an advantage over my classmates. What happens is that when I use the thesaurus, I find other words that are even better fits for my sentence structure. Now, I've written a sentence that expresses my ideas with more clarity and in a more concise manner. Another advantage that I have is that I know I'm not going to write a 5-page paper in a couple of hours, so I allocate plenty of time to turn in good quality work. I remember a paper I wrote for British literature. This was a research-based paper in which we were to choose a theme from one of the works we had been studying. I chose to write about Shakespeare's theme of nothing. I could have chosen a much easier theme, and I would not have had to work nearly as hard as I did. But had I done this, I would not have written the type of paper I did. This brings me to another advantage I have, which is one of an extraordinarily strong work ethic. If I didn't have these previous experiences, I would not have had to work nearly as hard as I did. So I am able to persevere when many are ready to give up. This has helped me as an adult student. But things were not nearly as so bright. When I was in high school, I did not have this same outlook. As a matter of fact, I had a very negative slant indeed. Looking back, I can see that when I encountered a difficult academic task, I would all too often give up prematurely and throw in the sponge. I could always justify this in my mind by thinking, they said I have dyslexia, a learning disability. No wonder I can't get this. Isn't a learning disability? Doesn't that mean you are disabled from learning? Wow, what a bunch of hogwash. I think that we need to be extremely careful with the use of such language, especially as educators. One of my primary jobs as an educator is to facilitate learning. For the sake of everything that is equitable, I had better not view any student as not being able to learn. In a book entitled To Teach, William Ayres points out that labeling students encourages stereotypical behavior that confines perspective and defies our patient search for the whole child. We are not the manufacturer, therefore, we are not qualified to place labels on children. Who is to say what lies within a fellow human being? If we measure ourselves by ourselves and compare ourselves among ourselves, we are not wise.